Despite all the talk about lone wolves, the fact is that most processes of radicalization happen in the context of groups, and that's why we have, in many cases, next slide please, charismatic leaders who are incredibly important. For some people, they are father figures, they are people that people look up to. In the case of religiously inspired groups, they are also spiritual sanctioners who believe they can provide some justification in religious terms. And of course, we have the issue of cliques. And the fifth and final point that is important, and that was also mentioned by our colleague yesterday from Safer World, is the issue of violence. Violence begets violence. And it is no accident that if you look at the global database of terrorism incidents, you will find that 80% of terrorist incidents in the last 5 years happened in only 5 countries: in Pakistan, Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, and Nigeria. 5 countries which, with the possible exception of Pakistan, are all countries which are in the midst of civil wars. And terrorism and violent extremism is typically also an outcome. And even if you look at the remaining 20% of terrorist incidents, they are often inspired or spillovers by conflicts in other countries. And violence matters because, of course, experience and exposure creates conditions of normalization. Once you're involved in a violent conflict, it becomes easier to become violent yourself, because you always have someone to take revenge on or to avenge your brothers and sisters for. And there are vicious cycles of conflict that are hard to stop. So in a sense, the issue of resolving conflicts is inseparable from addressing the causes of violent extremism, because violent extremism typically happens in the context of violent conflicts. And I completely agree with what was said yesterday, that it is perhaps a little bit too narrow to focus only on countering violent extremism if it is at the expense of addressing wider conflicts.